Unveiled, the amazing bay leaf that's 1,000x more powerful than Botox. Erase wrinkles at 70. Martha Taylor leaned over her countertop, eyes darting between her latest batch of flowers and her laptop screen. The bright colors of spring blooms contrasted sharply with the dullness of her reflection in the kitchen window. 60 years of laughter, love, and loss etched themselves into her face, the wrinkles a map of her life. Every line, once a badge of honor, now felt like a shackle, reminding her of a past she could no longer embrace. She needed something, anything, to restore not just her skin, but her spirit. And then she stumbled upon the miracle that was bay leaves. Excited yet skeptical, she brewed a tea and slathered the concoction onto her skin, hopeful but filled with doubt. Almost immediately, she noticed something astonishing. Her complexion brightened, the tiredness lifted. Each day brought about small changes, seemingly magical. A flickering of confidence glimmered in her chest, reminding her of the spirited young woman she once was. However, as the days progressed, her heart sank deeper into conflict. Could this be real? How could something so simple reveal a side of her long suppressed by grief and distance? Yet along with her rejuvenated self emerged another feeling. The shadows of estrangement from her children loomed large. They were all living their own lives, chasing dreams, while she processed the heartache of losing her husband and the connections she once had with them. In the quiet corners of her home, bitterness and ache intertwined, threading into roots that choked her spirit. Doubts crowded her mind. What did they see when they looked at her? A ghost of the mother they knew? A burden? Even the success she craved in her flower shop, once a vibrant hub of life, now felt hollow without their laughter echoing through the rooms. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each passing day, her newfound glow became a double-edged sword. Automated ads started popping up online about her discovery. Bright-eyed and cheerful, Jake re-entered her life, stoking embers of hope, urging her to share the bay leaf remedy with others. But the thought of bringing her natural remedy into the hands of strangers twisted her stomach. What if it became something it was never meant to be? A product instead of a promise, a commercial chase instead of healing. She was caught in a moral dilemma, balancing fame and fortune against familial ties. However, the most painful twist awaited her. Her eldest son, who had appeared genuinely eager to reconnect, casually dropped a bombshell regarding his desire to align with the corporate giant that wanted to exploit her newfound success. Heartbreak crushed her spirit under its weight. With her dreams blooming like spring flowers, the very roots of her family were threatened to wither away once more. Could she really choose her own joy over the delicate threads of loyalty already frayed? The thought suffocated her, but as she gazed into the eyes of her reflection, she realized the time for choice approached. Now, more than ever, she must uncover the depths of her own ambition. As silence enveloped her, anticipation rattled in her chest, and anxiety igniting the uncertain air. One question reverberated louder than the others. Would she exploit her discovery for personal gain, or allow it to heal the deep rifts in her family? Martha's heart raced as thoughts collided in a whirlwind, each one marking a potential path, some leading towards independence and self-affirmation, others straight into the mire of rejected love and familial ties. As she sank deeper into this conflict, her mind replayed the lessons from her long marriage, the balance of love and ambition, the fragility of dreams intertwined with personal histories. What had been their greatest source of strength, support, understanding, and laughter, now felt like chains binding her to hesitation and fear. Looking around her kitchen, she saw the remnants of her flowers, each petal fresh and vibrant, reflected the energy she yearned to reclaim. Crafting floral arrangements had long been her sanctuary, an escape from life's harsh realities. The shop had once been alive with the chatter of customers and the laughter of her children, but now it echoed with emptiness. What if I looked to that time? She questioned silently. What if the key to bridging the gap with my children lies not in the bay leaf, but in a flower arrangement? She closed her laptop, the endless distractions fading away. Instead, she walked to her workbench, each floral tool reminding her of moments spent alongside her family. Could she host a workshop? Invite them to create something together? Perhaps a day spent arranging flowers could reawaken those long dormant connections that she so desperately missed. It felt both thrilling and terrifying. Collecting an assortment of blooms from her supply, Martha found herself meticulously crafting a bouquet. The gentle scraping of stems against one another felt like whispering secrets back to her, memories of a time when her children splashed color and laughter throughout their home. The smell of the blossoms enveloped her, grounding her in earthiness and hope. But doubt still loomed, an ever-present shadow. Would her children join her in this flower-filled endeavor, or would they dismiss it as yet another fleeting idea rooted in the desperate soil of her anxiety? As she contemplated this, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her son, a simple query about family plans for the weekend. Her heart raced, a spark of opportunity igniting the embers of her resolve. This was her chance. She quickly typed back, suggesting an afternoon at the flower shop, a casual invitation to reconnect. Would they see it as childish, or could it spark the conversations she needed to have? Before she could second-guess herself, she pressed send. The melodic chime of the notification felt like a promise lingering in the air. Just as her anticipation soared, her phone buzzed again, a response from her daughter, uncertain yet intrigued. "What do you mean?" it read, followed by a contemplative emoji. Maybe this was a moment pregnant with potential. The ease at which her child engaged felt like opening a door she thought long closed. But in the back of her mind, self-doubt curled tightly around her intentions. What if her motives were misunderstood? What if it seemed selfish to use their reconnection to solidify her professional ambitions? Would they ever accept the ugly truth of her mixed feelings about fame, family, and the alluring market of beauty? In the midst of these swirling emotions, the underlying question resurfaced. How much longer could she stand at the crossroads of her ambitions and her family ties? As she gazed out her window, now shimmering with a fresh light, she made her decision. She would step forward toward creating a space for healing, both for herself and her children. Yet as resolve filled her, she was acutely aware that the hardest part was still to come, confronting how her revitalization might change the dynamics of her family forever. And so, she prepared her heart for whatever responses awaited her. This flower-filled day could be the pivot point of her new life, yet tensions still hung in the air, thick and unyielding. What if they rejected her? What if the workshop unraveled the very bonds she aimed to mend? The uncertainty weighed heavily, and she braced for the inevitable confrontation with her family. Would this budding initiative cultivate love or force them further apart? Only time would tell. Martha stood at the threshold of her flower shop the following Saturday, newfound determination coursing through her veins. The morning sun poured in, casting warm hues across the scattered petals and existing arrangements. Each bloom flared with potential, much like her own desires for connection. She checked the clock repeatedly, anxiety creeping in despite her initial excitement. Would they come? Would they embrace the memories she sought to rekindle? As she arranged the blooms set before her, she mentally mapped out the workshop. She envisioned guiding her children through the art of floral design, teaching them not only how to craft beauty, but also to cherish the process of creation as a family. However, the juxtaposition of her professional aspirations lingered ominously at the edges of her excitement. Would they see beyond the flowers to her deeper intentions? Or would she be met with skepticism and derision? The door swung open slowly, the tinkling of the bell heralding the arrival of her daughter, Emily. She glanced around, her enthusiasm evident yet tinged with uncertainty. "What's all this about, Mom? You never mentioned it would be—" "This," she said, gesturing toward the vibrant colors sprawled throughout the shop. Martha could feel the knot in her stomach tighten. "I thought it might be nice," she replied, trying to sound casual. "A chance for us to reconnect, maybe." The last word hung heavily in the air. Emily studied her mother, her eyes a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You really think floral arrangements will do that?" A challenge laced in her tone. Before Martha could respond, her son Jake bounded in, his energy palpable. "I came for free snacks. What is this? Learn to be your mother's favorite. Will there be, like, prizes?" His irreverence served to shift the atmosphere, albeit not in the direction she had hoped. "Okay, let's focus on the flowers." Martha barely managed to cover her disappointment. "I want us to create something together." Her voice trembled slightly, an echo of vulnerability seeping through her resolve. The workshop began with the clinking of tools and the soft rustle of stems. Martha showed her children how to layer the colors and textures, each bloom carefully placed, a dance of artistic expression. Yet, amidst the laughter and the playful jabs at each other's creations, there was an undercurrent of tension, unspoken words clinging to the air between them. As they worked, introspection crept in. The bouquets bustling to life before them were telling stories that Martha feared wouldn't be heard. Did her children see her as simply a floral shop owner? As the afternoon progressed, she began to notice Jake's subtle eye rolls and Emily's pursed lips. "Why did you really want us here?" Emily finally asked, frustration spilling over. "Are you trying to lure us back just to farm us for help with your business?" The accusation struck like a thunderclap, reverberating through the sacred space she had hoped to create. Martha swallowed hard, fighting the urge to justify herself with words laden with desperation. "I want you to see this isn't just about flowers. I want to share my passion with you." Her voice rose as her emotions surged, a mix of defiance and entreaty. Would they ever understand that entwined with the blooms lay her longing for connection? The room fell silent, the tension palpable. "Jake," ever the peacemaker, interjected, "we get that you love this stuff, but it feels forced, like you're trying too hard." Martha's heart sank as she heard the disappointment in their voices. It was a stark reminder of the chasm that had widened in their relationship. She knew she had more to offer than just floristry. There was so much more to her life than the petals and leaves that framed her world. But could her children ever look deeper? At that moment, she made a choice, a leap into vulnerability. "Maybe I am, but it's not just about the flowers. It's about finding a way back to each other." A flicker of uncertainty passed between them before it dissolved into mild curiosity. Did she dare hope for something different this time? As she pulled a few more flowers from the cool water, gently laying them on her work table, she felt their curious gazes land on her. Would her willingness to confront uncomfortable truths allow them to bridge the gap? Or would this moment of honesty expose another fracture in their already fragile bond? Determined, she took a deep breath, ready to express everything she had been holding back, knowing that the path to healing might be rough. But perhaps sometimes the hardest truths lay hidden in the most unexpected places. Little did she know, one of the blooms she had chosen held deeper significance than mere petals, and that realization would force her to confront the essence of who she really was. Martha settled her hands on the work table, allowing the soft texture of the petals to ground her racing thoughts. The weight of her admission hung heavily in the air, creating a momentary stillness carved out from the previous jabs and accusations. She sought to unravel the depth of her feelings, yet the tension felt palpable, as if her children waited for an answer that only silence could provide. Emily broke the stillness first, her brow furrowed in reflection. "So, You want us to understand you? Is that it? The skepticism was evident, layered beneath a protective veneer. Martha could sense the reluctance in her daughter's tone, an echo of the childhood reluctance she had once known. Yet, how could she bridge that gap now? Yes, Martha said, a quiet resolve igniting within her. But more than that, it's about us, together. I've kept my world separate from you both for too long. She picked a daisy, its cheerful face a stark contrast to her somber mood. Floral arrangements are metaphorical. They're not just about making something look pretty. It reflects the effort it takes to create and nurture something beautiful. Jake shifted from foot to foot, casting doubtful glances at the half-finished arrangements. Mom, making flower bouquets is fine and all, but it's not exactly something we're passionate about. His words rang with an honesty that stung, but also struck a chord. I know, she replied, voice steadying as a new determination surged. But have you ever considered you might enjoy it if you let yourself explore it? I've been crafting my entire life out of these blooms, literally and figuratively. But I want you to see that I've been lonely in that too. Emily tapped her fingers on the table, the persistent rhythm echoing her inner conflict. I don't know, Mom. You've always kept us at a distance. It's like we've been living on two different planets. I want to change that, Martha said, surprise flooding her with newfound courage. I never meant to create that distance. Work took over, and I didn't nurture our connection. But I'm here now. I want to learn from you too. I want to understand your lives, your interests. We could have shared interests, you know? The prospect of shared experiences lingered in the air like the fragrant aroma of the gardenias that graced the shop. Jake's curiosity sparked, and for a beat, she thought she could see the beginning of a shift in their dynamic. Okay, Jake relented slightly. But what if we made our own combinations? Like a creativity challenge? That could actually be fun. A small smile broke through Martha's nerves, a fragile flower bursting through concrete. I'd love that. Let's make it a fun competition where we design something that represents each of us. Her heart quickened at the shift of energy. Perhaps the barriers were slowly crumbling. Emily visibly brightened at the idea. That might actually work. I mean, if we can make it our own. Exactly, Martha encouraged, feeling a swell of optimism. Let's each pick our own flowers and make something that says who we are. As they began discussing their individual designs, a sense of collaboration washed over the shop, melting the remnants of tension. Yet, as they reached for the blooms, Martha felt an unsettling thrill. She knew that diving deeper into this connection would force her to reveal more than mere preferences. Would her children accept not only her passion for floristry, but the deeper implications of choosing to rebuild their relationship? Just as Jake reached for a vibrant spray of zinnias, a hidden memory sparkled to life in Martha's mind, her mother whispering about the transformed lives woven through nurtured roots and blossoming connections. In the visualization, she caught a glimpse of what lay below her surface, roots twisting through soil, holding firmly, yet invisible. Hold on, she said, halting their discussion. There's one more thing I have to share before we dive into the flowers. Her heart raced as the gravity of her past hovered over her like impending rain. What scale of vulnerability lay ahead? She didn't yet know, but a looming truth flickered at the edges of her mind, something she must confront if she were ever to pave the way for a new reality with her children. What could she unveil that would change everything? The moment stretched before her, saturated with potential. Would she have the courage to share it all? Martha took a deep breath, the words swelling within her, uninvited yet insistent. She could feel the remnants of her guarded past clinging to her like an unshakable shadow. Behind her veil of calm lay the tumult of emotions. This was the moment to strip back the layers, to expose the tender truths that had dictated her actions and decisions for years. You both have seen me struggle, seen my work absorb me. But you've never known why, she began, her voice trailing off as memories clamored for attention. I poured everything into this shop and its flowers out of desperation. Your father and I, we—" Her voice faltered for a moment, but she pressed on. "We built this business together, meant it to symbolize our life and growth. But when he left, I let the shop consume me." Jake and Emily exchanged glances laden with surprise, and perhaps even a trace of understanding. Martha continued, realizing the depth of her own vulnerability as she spoke. It was easier to hide amongst the blooms than to confront the loneliness that settled in. Making these arrangements, they were never just work. They were my way of holding on to something beautiful that felt lost. With each word, Martha could feel the grip of her guilt loosening, unveiling a sense of freedom. Her children watched, their skepticism softening, replaced by cautious curiosity. Emily leaned forward slightly, breaking through her guarded posture. "You never really talked about Dad," she said, her voice quiet yet potent. "What happened?" Martha hesitated, the answer tethering her to a space she thought she'd left behind. "It hurt too much to face." She felt tears threatening to spill over. "I told myself focusing on the shop would shield you both from his absence, but it only succeeded in building walls between us." Jake's brow furrowed. "But why didn't you ever come to us? We would have understood, or at least tried to." "Because I was afraid." The admission hung heavy in the air, each syllable biting at her carefully constructed defenses. "I didn't want to burden you with my guilt or my pain. Instead, I thought I was protecting you by keeping my struggles hidden. But I see now that this isolation compounded the hurt for all of us." The revelation seemed to echo around the room like a gentle breeze blowing through a silent garden. Jake crossed his arms, contemplating an invisible structure built by the past. "Okay," he murmured at last. "It sounds like we've all been trying to flower in a thorny garden together. But we can't keep doing that, can we?" "No," Martha replied, a sense of clarity washing over her. "But we can decide to nurture something new, together." She shared a hesitant smile with her children, the seed of hope sprouting amidst their collective heartache. The three were on the brink of exploring what this venture meant beyond the petals and stems. They could reshape not only their approach to floral design, but also what it meant to be a family again, to cultivate their relationships with the same care they applied to their arrangements. "Let's take it one step further. I want to create a piece that embodies this, our raw feelings, our healing," Martha proposed, sensing the power in connecting these new truths with the creative challenge they had initiated. Emily raised an eyebrow, her previous skepticism giving way to intrigue. "And how do we express that among the flowers?" "I think it starts by choosing flowers that don't just represent us, but also represent the aspects of our journey, the thorns we've navigated and the blooms we aspire to be," Martha said, feeling a rekindled sense of purpose with each word. As they moved toward the flowers, the tension which had once weighed them down felt lighter. Yet Martha knew there was still more to confront. What other truths lay buried within her, waiting for the right conditions to flourish? It felt daunting, but exhilarative, as if they were all standing at the edge of blossoming into something more. "Mom," Jake began, looking thoughtful, "what's next after creating this piece? What if our progress leads to something even deeper?" Martha turned, caught between excitement and trepidation. "Then we'll face that too, together, but first, let's see what we can create now." And as they began selecting flowers, her heart drummed a new rhythm of resilience, yet a voice lingered in her thoughts. Certain truths, each more profound than the last, threatening to poke through her armor. What else was she truly willing to unveil now that they had dusted off the surface? What lay hidden, waiting just beyond reach? As they stood surrounded by an array of colors, textures, and fragrances, Martha felt a surge of intention. Each flower presented a choice, a representation of their shared journey and the individual paths that still wound through the intricacies of their lives. A fragrant jasmine caught her eye, delicate yet filled with a powerful scent. It seemed to resonate with everything she hoped to convey. "Let's start here," she said, plucking the bloom. "This jasmine represents our healing. It's beautiful but fragile, much like the trust we're rebuilding." She glanced at her children, gauging their reactions. Jake nodded, moving closer to inspect a cluster of vibrant sunflowers. "And what about these?" he asked, a smile breaking through the somber notes of their previous conversation. "They feel like a fresh start." "Exactly," Martha replied, delighted by his enthusiasm. "Bright and resilient, they symbolize new beginnings, optimism, everything we hope to achieve as a family." While arranging the flowers, a tangle of choices formed in her mind. Each stem carried memories, both fading and fresh, and she began to understand that she was not just crafting an arrangement, but is also weaving their stories into something cohesive. As she snipped stems, her thoughts turned inward. What would her children think if they unearthed the roots of her despair? What could she reveal about herself that might free them all from the past? "Mom," Emily said, looking thoughtfully at a bunch of pale lavender, "what about these? They remind me of calm and comfort." Martha paused, momentarily lost in her child's insight. There was wisdom in Emily's choice, seeking comfort and calm in a world that had served chaos. "That's perfect," she affirmed. "Lavender embodies peace. It's essential for our journey. We need to cultivate an atmosphere of understanding and patience while we heal." They worked diligently, a budding collaboration born from shared vulnerabilities and new understandings. But in the back of her mind, Martha felt the weight of lingering concerns, her shadows still whispering doubts. Each movement seemed to peel back layers of her past, forcing her to confront parts of herself she had kept hidden for so long. She looked at her children, consumed by their work, frustration and joy intermixed in fleeting expressions. What would happen when they completed the piece? Did she dare hope it could inspire them to unravel even deeper truths, even as they faced the uncomfortable remnants of their family history? With every flower they introduced into the arrangement, Martha felt her internal struggle intensify, the fear of backlash every bit as palpable as the scent of the blooms. Would digging deeper only exacerbate the pain, or would it cultivate a richer understanding of each other? She paused, gripping the ribbon that would bind the arrangement. A moment of silence descended. "I want to tell you both something," she started, aware that the air had shifted, ripe with anticipation. "There's more to this journey than just the flowers we see here." Jake and Emily, sensing a pivot in their mother's resolve, stopped to listen. Their expressions now mirrored her own trepidation. "What do you mean?" asked Jake, both curious and cautious. Martha exhaled, steeling herself for the revelations that danced at her tongue's edge, threatening to challenge the dynamic they had just started to stabilize. "There are layers to our family that extend beyond what we've shared. Stories I've kept to protect you." She took a tentative breath. The arrangement was more than floral design. It had become a mirror of their shared life, a microcosm capturing all the thorns and blooms. The possibility of perceived betrayal loomed. Yet she knew that to nurture their lives forward, each layer of truth needed illumination. It was time to face the deeper wounds, the ones hidden beneath the surface, threatening to disrupt their harmony if left unaddressed. What if revealing those truths becomes the real challenge? Martha thought, trembling as she weighed the risk of dismantling their fragile progress against the promise of deeper connection. As the tension lingered in the air, she realized they were no longer just arranging flowers. They were at the precipice of confronting the real foundation of their family. What stories had she protected for too long? Would this unveiling reshape them entirely, challenging everything they'd begun to build? Martha's heart raced, the very air around her thick with the unspoken truths that had lingered like an uninvited shadow. The bold colors of the flower arrangement felt eclipsed by the weighty memories threatening to surface. She could sense her children's anticipation, their gazes heavy with curiosity, challenging her to delve deeper. "Mom, what stories?" Emily whispered, her brows furrowing slightly, concern edging into the warmth of their previous conversation. The tremor in Martha's fingers tightened her grip on the ribbon. She understood that this moment could either fracture their new beginnings or bind them together stronger than before. Yet the choice was hers alone to bear. "Every family has secrets," she began, her voice steady, but softened by trepidation. The aroma of sunflowers filled her senses, and she conjured their meaning alongside her words. "There are moments in our past that have shaped us, moments I thought would spare you pain if left unshared." Jake frowned, processing her words as his youthful mind struggled with the complexities of adult emotions. "You mean like how Dad left?" His tone was edged with hesitance, as if naming the pain aloud would somehow amplify it. Martha's heart constricted at his reference. "Yes, and more." She stepped back, allowing herself to breathe, feeling the floral arrangement's vibrant energy pulse between them. "The roots of our family run deeper than one instance of loss. There were instances of neglect, misunderstandings, and even the struggles with my own worth. I shielded you from those details, thinking it was for the best. But I realize a part of healing means facing the difficult truths together." Pain radiated from her chest as she recalled the nights spent mulling over what she should share, fearing it might unravel the little stability they had begun to forge. "Your father's choice affected each of us, yes, but so did my decisions afterward. The way I reacted to that loss, the distance I allowed to grow between us, those were paths I carved out of fear." Emily shifted uncomfortably, yet she stood firm, an unyielding strength blossoming within her. "Do you really think sharing all that will help us?" The question echoed through Martha like a bell tolling in an empty room. It weighed heavily against her resolve. Would unveiling her vulnerabilities spark empathy, or would it unfurl years of bottled resentment? Was she brave enough to go through with it? "I believe it is necessary," Martha responded, her voice resolute yet soft. "This is about more than just the absence of one person. It's about recognizing how the absence affected our dynamic, academically, emotionally, relationally. It's accepting that my choices shaped you into the remarkable people you are today, while simultaneously complicating our path." Jake's eyebrows furrowed. "What if we don't like what we hear? What if we hate each other?" The past echoed loud and clear. His fear mirrored her own worries. Martha contemplated the possibility, holding space in her heart for both pain and growth. "That's a possibility we must acknowledge, but I believe sharing these stories can help us replace judgment with understanding." With a steady exhalation, Martha reached for the lavender bloom, the softness of its petals grounding her. "Every flower in our arrangement reflects a part of us, the beauty, the bruises, the potential. To heal, we must acknowledge each hue of this tapestry we call family." As her children studied her with careful expressions, it dawned on them that the core of this family circle was not only shaped by joy, but also intricately intertwined with vulnerability and authenticity. The shift in the air was palpable. Would these vulnerabilities unite them in understanding, or would they trigger long-buried resentments that could fracture them further? Martha felt an unsettling excitement flutter within, intertwined with a resolve that urged her to move forward. The stakes were higher than ever, but so were the possibilities. "Shall we begin?" As she looked from one child to the other, Martha realized they stood on the brink of something transformative, a narrative waiting to unfold. They were poised to confront truths that could either challenge their bonds or reinforce them. Was she ready to gather these pieces and risk the intricate arrangements they had just begun to mend? As silence settled like a soft mist around them, another layer of trust hung in the air, unspoken yet fervent. And in that moment of suspended anticipation, Martha knew. The real challenge lay not just in revealing past wounds, but in the courage to embrace their impact on the present. Martha felt the weight of her children's gazes, each pair of eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. It was a moment drenched in uncertainty, where every word she spoke would carve out a path they couldn't easily retract. In this sense, the flower arrangement she clutched was more than decoration. It represented life itself, the intertwined roots of their histories, visibly marked by the scars of loss and neglect, yet also full of potential. She closed her eyes momentarily, making an attempt to quell the rising tide of panic that threatened to drown her. "There's something I haven't told you both, something that happened long before your father left," Martha began, her voice steady but trembling with the weight of the revelation. "When I was younger, I struggled deeply with feeling like I belonged. I didn't have the kind of childhood most would envy." Emily's brow furrowed as she leaned in closer. "Mom, what do you mean?" Martha inhaled sharply, choosing her words carefully as she peered back into a past she had long buried. "I was always trying to meet expectations that weren't mine to uphold. My parents, your grandparents, placed excessive importance on appearances and achievements. I learned early on to mask my true feelings, to keep up a facade. I felt unloved unless I performed." The silence was palpable, thickening as Jake processed her words. "Isn't that common, though?" he asked. "Aren't parents just trying to make us better?" Martha nodded, sensing the truth in his words, but also the different shades of reality that lay obscured. "Yes, and that's why I share this with you. Perfectionism can create a prison. I spent years trapped inside my own fears, fear of failure, fear of disappointing others. I can't help but think that the distance between your dad and me stemmed from my own inability to communicate my true self. I hid that part of me to preserve our family, and it only drove us apart." Jake's brow furrowed deeper. "Then why didn't you just say something? Why leave us out of it?" The guilt crashed over Martha like a wave. "I thought I was protecting you from my pain. I didn't realize my silence would give birth to the loneliness you've both felt." The weight of the admission rendered her breathless. Could openness replace years of silence? Emily interjected, her voice filled with caution. "But if you felt this way, why not talk to Grandma or Grandpa? You could have been honest about how you felt." Martha's heart sank at the thought. "Because I feared it would just add more disappointment to their expectations. I had been molded by insecurity, convinced that my struggles were burdens too heavy for others to bear. What I didn't understand then was how sharing those feelings could forge connections rather than destroy them." As she spoke, Martha felt her resolve grow stronger. She had to challenge the narrative of isolation she had constructed around herself, showing them that vulnerability could lead to strength. The truth that had resonated deeply within her for so long was finally surfacing, disrupting the silence like thunder. Each of us has a story filled with wounds and joys. My hope is that by unraveling those tales, we might find shared courage to be imperfect, together. Jake, still processing, looked uncertain but intrigued. "So, we're supposed to talk about this more. What if I can't handle it?" The unease in his voice echoed her own fears, but Martha blamed herself less for those sentiments. "It's possible it may be hard, and I want you both to know that struggling to understand is perfectly normal. I can't promise there won't be pain in this journey, but I can promise that this family will be stronger for embarking on it together." Emily felt the tension lift slightly. "Okay, so we share. You're ready to tell us what you've been hiding. But what happens next?" Martha felt the weight of that question settle upon her. She could feel the boundaries of the parental role she occupied blurring as she now faced the daunting task of guiding her children through their own realizations. What happens next is completely up to us. It may be uncomfortable, challenging, but it's the only way I know to move forward. As she looked between her children, Martha understood this was their pivotal moment of connection, a moment where their individual truths could reshape the narrative they had unknowingly participated in. And just as she felt the stirrings of new hope, a single thought emerged, conflicting but electric. Was she prepared for what could be unleashed next? Could sharing not just reveal wounds, but also disturb the tranquil surface of the family bond they were beginning to mend? With her heart steadying, but uncertainty brewing, she posed the question that loomed large. Are we ready to uncover ourselves, to reveal everything that lies beneath? Martha felt the air shift around them as the question hung heavily in the space between her and her children. The eyes of Emily and Jake flickered with hesitation, but also with a glimmer of curiosity. She sensed the urgency to move past the fragility of the moment, knowing too well that unspoken fears could linger longer than words. "We can start small, if that helps," she offered, her voice gaining a firmer weight. "Let's talk about a time you felt pressured to be someone you're not. It might make it easier to share while knowing we're all a little nervous." The suggestion didn't seem to lessen the tension, but rather ignited a tender reflection within Jake. He shifted in his seat, looking out the window, letting the sunlight spill across his concerned face. "Mom, when I tried out for the basketball team, I didn't even want to play. Dad always talked about how great he was at sports. I just wanted to paint." Relief washed over Martha. He had taken the leap. She nodded encouragingly. "What happened when you realized that?" "I was terrified of disappointing him, so I practiced hard, even though I hated every second of it." Jake's voice was barely above a whisper, revealing layers of vulnerability chiseled by expectation. "In the end, I didn't make the team. Instead of being relieved, I felt like absolute garbage. I'd let Dad down." Neither Emily nor Martha could hide their hearts softening at the sight of Jake's inner conflict exposed so candidly. Emily looked at him, her walls instinctively coming down. "I get that. I feel it with school, too. Everyone keeps saying I need to choose a direction and do what I love. But then I panic and pick something that's safe, like when I signed up for debate club. I thought it would impress everyone, but I wanted to write poetry." Martha's heart swelled. Her children were reaching for clarity through this shadow of expectation that loomed around them, and she too felt the fear lift. "You both are strong for sharing this. It's hard to admit when we've been placed in a box, dictated by other people's hopes and dreams." Martha could feel the shift within herself. She recognized that unraveling the truths behind their fears and failings wasn't just an act of courage. It was also a brick-by-brick rebuilding of a foundation they all stood upon, one anchored in authenticity. "What if I told you that it's never too late to step off that pathway?" she ventured. "I worked through my fears from my parents' expectations, and even though it took me years to find my own light, I eventually became a florist because it brought me joy. It was my escape." Jake's eyebrows raised. "But will it matter if we make different choices than what they want?" "Of course it will," she replied firmly. "Your choices are what carve out the future. Trust that your happiness relies on embracing who you are, not who others want you to be." Their conversation twisted and turned as they began to dig deeper, engaging in a revealing dialogue about dreams they had shelved due to fear. Each moment of honesty served to peel away layers of pain, transforming their familial bond into something far more resilient. Yet, as the sunlight shifted, casting shadows that stretched dramatically across the room, a deeper fear gnawed at Martha. Was she ready for the discussions to go beyond revelations and tackle the real monsters behind their insecurities? Could she handle what other secrets were bound to surface when they began to delve deeper into their truths? "Mom." Emily's voice broke the reverie, though cautious, it was laced with concern. "What do we do if we find we truly don't want to follow what's expected? What if it puts us at odds with the people we love most?" With that question, a looming sense of discomfort crept into the room. Martha felt the surface of optimism crack under the weight of potential conflict. "That's the hardest part, and a journey we need to embrace together," she stated, her heart pounding. "We will need to confront the consequences of our choices, but we can't do it alone. I can't promise it will all work out perfectly." Seeking the path ahead through the uncertainty felt daunting, but there was a determined resolve building inside her. Whatever lay ahead, it was a chance to exist authentically, guiding her children through storms of resentment and unlocking their truths together. As silence enveloped them, the question loomed. Would they find the courage to navigate what the next conversation could unleash? Would they redefine not only themselves, but also the family identity they each carried? The answer remained just out of reach, pulsating with tension. Martha stood surrounded by the vibrant blooms, her heart racing as she faced her children. The energy of the flower shop pulsed with potential, much like the conversation she was desperate to continue. The moment lingered, hesitant but charged, and she could sense the air thickening with the weight of unspoken questions. Maybe the truth has always been just beneath the surface, Martha began, her voice steadying. We have to confront it, hide it no longer. Jake looked between his mother and sister, a brow raised as if still expecting her to retract. But the moment she had chosen to unveil her fears had changed everything, and he nodded in acknowledgement. I want us to keep this going, Martha said, feeling the power in her decision become a wellspring of confidence. Let's explore not just who we are individually, but how that connects us as a family, even when the expectations of others feel suffocating. After all, if there's anything I've learned, it's that our stories are meant to be woven together. A light flickered in Emily's eyes as she captured the sentiment in her mind. Okay, but I think we should make sure to express ourselves without worrying about how the world sees us, she added, her voice laced with determination. Absolutely, Martha agreed, feeling a deep sense of pride for the resilience they were developing as a family. Let's agree to listen. Forgive ourselves for not being perfect. The pressures we've faced shouldn't define our worth, but rather become the driving force for who we aim to be. As they worked on the floral arrangements, their themes materialized, fluctuating with the rhythm of their narrative. Together they laughed, reflected, and explored creativity, without fear of judgment or scorn, creating pieces that represented not just beautiful blooms, but also the very tangible progress toward rebuilding their relationships. Martha felt lighter with every petal she placed. Uncertainty was giving way to clarity. With each conversation, she sensed a shift, the blossoming of authenticity no longer hindered by reluctance. They crafted 3 unique arrangements, each depicting their essence. Emily's filled with lilacs and daisies symbolizing hope and comfort. Jake's exuberant sunflowers showcasing resilience and optimism. And Martha's own, a mix of jasmine and roses representing their healing and shared vulnerability. When they finally stood back to admire their work, the shop seemed to tip the balance from desolation to exuberance, each flower perfecting the transformation from fear to connection. There, amidst the petals, lay the emissaries of their evolution, transcending far beyond its original purpose. They had created something greater than the sum of their efforts. Martha glanced at her children, their faces reflecting pride. I think what we've done here today is monumental. Not only have we made beautiful arrangements, but we also laid the foundation for genuine communication. And that feels like a success beyond measure. Mom, Jake said, his tone a mixture of surprise and gratitude. I didn't think it was possible for us to feel so real again. Thank you. Emily nodded, her eyes glistening. For sharing your truth, and for showing us that it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to be human. As her heart swelled with pride, Martha realized this was her moment of true triumph. No longer was she just a florist hiding behind blooms. She was a mother forging her identity amid love and vulnerability. She felt recognized, not just as a business owner, but also as the heart of her family. Reevaluating her path, she understood the balance between ambition and family ties had not only been established, but had now flourished. Her flower shop had become what it was intended, a vessel that could unite individuals through shared experiences. Martha gazed at the arrangements, standing tall before her like milestones marking their shared journey. They had faced fears, reconciled the past, and emerged with a confidence that surged through them. And as the sunlight bathed the blooms in golden light, she recognized her personal achievement. She had conquered her insecurities, established connection and understanding, and unveiled a path to family intimacy defined by authenticity rather than expectations. With her heart steady and purpose clear, Martha embraced this new chapter of her life, knowing that the bonds they forged had only just begun to blossom. As she locked eyes with Jake and Emily, she invited them into the future with open arms, a commitment to navigate life together, flower by flower, through their unyielding bond of love. This was the moment of profound resolution, a moment that signified growth, acknowledgement of shared ancestry, and a celebration of the journey toward becoming whole again. As they shared smiles, realization dawned upon them all. This wasn't merely a workshop. It was the genesis of a renewed family. Don't let the journey end here. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.